Good afternoon and welcome to PC2 and Ero's first ever visit to Portugal. We're at the Portimao circuit on the Portuguese Algarve for a brand new track to the F1 game series. Our drivers are going in blind, so who will learn the quickest and adapt to the undulating 15 turns of this new circuit? Turn 1 at the end of the pit straight tightens significantly on entry, as Lando Norris and Lance Stroll discovered in 2020. It's a strong overtaking opportunity, but the track limits are tight on exit, so drivers will need to be precise. Turn 5 at the end of the second DRS straight is likely to see some overtaking moves too. It's a downhill braking zone here, so don't be surprised to see drivers going deep and opening up the inside of the corner to the chasing car. But most corners here are tricky and prone to driver error, as Kimi Räikkönen proved on his charge through the field in 2020, making a move down the inside into turn 13 on Alex Albon, who's made up 10 places on the opening lap. The tyres here are the hardest in the Pirelli range, the C3, C2 and C1 tyres being used. Softs lost a long time here, so most of our drivers should be able to make a one-stop strategy work. We haven't seen any wet weather tyres in the real F1 races, but it could rain. In partnership with Belgium, Grid Finder and Race Insight, it's almost time for qualifying for PC2 Portuguese Grand Prix.
So, hello everybody, my name is Kiklen and welcome to PC2 in Portimao. We are going to be doing round 9 of the championship. So like I said, we are in Portimao in Portugal. This is going to be the first time that Ero is going to race here, so it's definitely going to be very exciting. My game audio is glitched, I think. Give me just a second. There we go. So, like I said, this is going to be our first time racing in Portimao, so this will be very exciting. In real life, it produced pretty okay races. We saw that Checo did a really big stint with mediums, so maybe our drivers can do that today and do a one-stop from mediums to softs, or maybe softs to mediums. The track is pretty long, I think a 116.7 a optimal lap time around this track, so not too short, not too long, so our drivers have a lot to manage. The track also has a lot of elevation changes, so you see that the corner where George Norton is right now is probably going to be the most difficult part of the track, as it's a downhill going into a right-hander uphill. So traction is going to be really awful, so the drivers are going to have to manage and not spin at that corner, which is really easy. We didn't see that in real life, so maybe we're not gonna see that here as well, but anything can still happen. We have a dry qualifying session, so that is very nice indeed, but anything can happen in the race, and we might see rain like in F5. So we are now... Oh, it actually is splashing a few drops of rain on track. As we are going into turn 1, it's a pretty big downhill, going to 2 right-hand turns and 1 hairpin-like corner. It's not entirely a hairpin. Going into a uphill, a very dangerous corner. You can easily lose the traction of the car there. Going into a downhill hairpin again. Going to 3rd or 2nd gear, probably early shifting as well to get the maximum acceleration possible. Going into 2 right-handers, the corner that I was talking about, the tight uphill where you can lose a lot of control. Going into a uphill, downhill, and then again uphill and downhill. So it's like a roller coaster, so it is really fun to drive on. Going into a downhill and uphill again, left-hander, and into a hairpin-like corner, not really entirely hairpin, and another hairpin as well. A big run-off area, so if the drivers lose control of their car, they can go off. And that was a pretty okay lap time from George on softs, who puts a 118.2. So the rain probably distracted him, and he didn't manage to do a better lap time. So this is very interesting to the medium drivers. I don't really know why they put mediums on. As Ryan said, a lap time of 118.8, pretty okay, but still could improve a lot. As Tuka in the other Aston Martin, George Norton's teammate, put a lap time of 118.7, again on mediums, going to P4, 5/10 off of his teammate. I think the medium tires are going to be around 7/10 off, maybe a bit more. You saw in the intro how much the delta is, but yeah, that is pretty okay, and the rain might help them actually, as everyone else will not be able to improve on their lap time. So we're gonna have to wait and see if it's going to dry out or if it's going to be even worse of a weather. On board with Duhast in the Alpine, looks like he is doing pretty well, going a bit deep in sector 3 and going pretty conservatively. He's probably going to enter the pit lane as he does not have enough fuel, I think. I don't really know corner names, but I'm just gonna guess. Wait a second, I'm having some issues, give me a second.
I'm here now, apologies for my tiredness. I actually have some corner names, hang on.
Oh, hello, how are you?
Hello. Late? Yes, apologies. Right, hang on, just let me find out. This is a track designed by the least inventive people in the world, because one of the corners is actually called Portimao.
Okay, that's... I actually didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think I got the corners right here, but only like 10 corners got the name.
Some of them aren't named, but it's a pretty new track. Like, it only opened like this century. So where you look at places like Silverstone and Suzuka that have been open for decades, like over 50 years, they've sort of had time to name all their corners after stuff. Whereas with Portimao they haven't. But I think the main reason they're going on the mediums is if you start on the softs, you're kind of required to go on the hards in order to do the one stop. You can just about stretch something on the mediums, but it's a bit tricky. Whereas if you start on the mediums, because they don't wear as fast on the high fuel, you can get on the softs and get to the end quite easily.
That is true, but if you can get rid of the softs very early on, you can easily extend the mediums to the end of the race, or maybe hards. So maybe a one-stop will be a better strategy if only rain is not going to be in the race, which we have in qualifying, a few droplets, like I said before.
Yeah. I think that's probably the weakness of mediums as well. Like, the softs are going to be so much easier to keep the temperature in. Whereas, I know it's only sort of spitting with rain, but it's going to be tricky to keep the temp in the mediums for the whole way around the lap.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see until the race starts, if we are going to have rain or not, as we are on board with Dragos.
A little heavier.
A little bit, and Dragos is really struggling, who has only just started his flying lap right now. But DRS is still enabled, so it's still not wet enough for intermediates. So maybe when the qualifying session advances to its final stages, maybe then we're going to see some more heavier rain. But that is going to be very good for the medium runners, who are P5 and 6 and 7 respectively, so they are going to be able to start on those very easily.
Yeah, I think if the start of the race said it was going to be wet, then we'd see everybody on softs. So they're definitely looking at the advantage for the race as opposed to just the advantage in qualifying. But as I said in the intro, turn 1 does tighten significantly, so when you've got all of the cars piling in there on lap 1, it is a bit tricky to sort of find enough space for everyone and not have contact somewhere down the field. So you have to be a bit careful with that. You don't want to qualify in the middle of the pack because you're liable to get caught up in somebody else's accident.
Dragos comes off the line and puts a 122.2, so it's not dry enough to do a better lap time. So Dragos is respectively going to start last if the rain will get heavier, so that is very unfortunate for the Haas driver. Lasse Rasmussen is also not with us today, so that is very unfortunate.
I nearly lost it. Coming through Lagos. Paolo got sat completely sideways and took a trip over the grass.
Very interesting.
On his outlap as well.
Well,
Pushing a
he
bit too hard to try and get temperature in those softs.
maybe, or maybe he just. Oops! Something fell off my desk. That's very nice. Maybe he was trying to move away to let Dragos through.
Dragos was in front and had pulled completely off the track on the outside of Lagos, and as Paolo came through, he kicked the back end out and took a trip over the grass on the inside. So he was definitely staying away from him, practicing social distancing in Portugal.
Jacob, who is our provisional leader, is cutting the whole track as he was just about to start his lap. He was just about to start his lap, but he's going into the pit lane. Looks like it's not dry enough, as the slick runners are all going into the pit lane. So maybe we're gonna see some intermediate running to get the feel for the tire.
Just a bit of practice, but
Yes.
it might just be a case of sort of qualifying sort of peters out a bit.
Maybe. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what everyone else will do. But we do have 3 people on their on lap. Martin, Valo, Duhast, and Paolo in the Williams, and they are really struggling on the track, losing around
I think
5
Martin
tenths.
might be on an in lap because he's 7 seconds down, or he's invalidated it somewhere early and backed it right off. Robbie's just started a lap. Yeah, he's just come over the line and just.
Oh, and Duhast has spun. Duhast has spun in Sagers. I mean near Sagers. So that is very unfortunate.
The track is starting to look a lot wetter now. Like from Robbie's onboard, you can definitely see some puddles starting to form. So we are moving towards sort of intermediate conditions, and these slicks are not going to be quicker. Robbie's a second down in sector 1 over his current fastest lap.
So I guess this is going to be our grid for the race, but we're gonna have to wait and see if the session dries out at the end, with 7 minutes remaining. As Dragos looks like going to be our first intermediate runner. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what everyone's paces is in the wet.
Yeah, I mean they won't be quicker. You're not going to set a lap for time faster than softs in drizzle on intermediates, but it might be good to get an idea, especially if the race says it's going to rain somewhere. Maybe it says it's going to rain in the last 10 minutes or so, in which case some drivers are going to dive in, put those intermediates on, especially those that aren't in the points, and then the guys at the front are probably going to try and hang it out on the dry tyres. Hopefully they don't slow down enough to give up a whole pit stop worth of delta.
I guess so. And I don't think we did a race with the new Red Bull livery. You can see that we have a white and black Red Bull livery that was presented in Turkey last Sunday. So it is in the game and it looks bloody fantastic, I think.
It's okay. But I mean, I don't really like Red Bull, but it's okay.
And Michael
I mean,
Mishler.
it's more inventive. I mean, I'll give them this. It's more inventive than the special Ferrari livery they did for their 1000th race, which was a slightly darker red.
Yes.
At least they put some effort into it. They haven't just gone, just turn the black up a bit on the colour palette. Whoa!
Oh, Michael
goes
Mishler
sideways
spun.
in turn 4.
Like, it's very interesting how Red Bull did a special livery for Honda as their successful partnership for 3 years, I think. But they didn't do a special livery for Renault, who delivered them 4 championships.
Oh yeah! That was going to go well. Public fallouts between Horner and was it Abitable? Was sort of chief exec at Renault at the time.
It was Abitul, I think.
They weren't going to do that. It was Cyril. I forget his surname.
Yes.
I think it was Abitable.
Abitul.
But
I
yeah,
think.
so that wasn't going to happen. They spent most of their life moaning about Renault.
I mean, but they still delivered 4 championships, so I think they at least deserved something. And the DRS has been disabled.
So now times definitely aren't going to improve. Michael sideways again. Times definitely aren't going to improve unless the track dries out enough for DRS to come back on at the very least. Which in 4.5 minutes seems unlikely. So I think this probably is going to be our grid. We've just got a few drivers on track now, just sort of finding their feet on the intermediate conditions. Because obviously when you do time trial around here, it's full wet. So a lot of them have probably never driven this track on intermediates.
Looks like Michael Mischler is
George.
just staying off of the track.
I think he knows that he's not very comfortable on these tyres, so he pulled out of the way of George, so he doesn't sort of get collected when he's.
Oh, and George Norton nearly spun, but he managed to take control of it.
Yeah, it's tricky when it's intermediate conditions because it's greasy. It's like when it's full wet, you sort of know what you're doing with that in terms of staying in higher gear and keeping the revs low and trying to get your traction that way. Because I mean, there already is some difficult traction zones. The exit of Samsung, particularly, where you can just lose the car even when it's bone dry. So when it's full wet, you sort of know, keep your gears high, keep your revs low, and things like that. But with it being intermediates and with it constantly changing as the rain gets slightly heavier and slightly heavier, you've got to find that sort of point where you're going quick enough that you're not going to be, destroyed in the race, but you're also going slow enough that you're not going to lose the car. So it is a bit tricky. And with, like I say, most guys will have never driven this track on intermediates unless they've done it in career mode or campaign, or if they've done a Grand Prix that just happens to have been on intermediates. It's totally new territory. And I mean, the track has only been out like a month, so they're not going to have the same sort of experience on this as that they'll have had in a lot of the other races, places like Bahrain and Suzuka and things like that do get a lot of running, and particularly Austria that gets a lot of running on online multiplayer.
And that is why the race is going to definitely be very interesting, as no one has a lot of experience as in every other track, as the Portimao track only came out recently. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how every driver will cope with the
strategy.
conditions.
Could be quite interesting because it could be very sort of variable between people. It's not going to be set in stone like it is at a lot of places like Silverstone. It's set in stone. You either start on softs and go to mediums, or you start on mediums and go to softs.
Yes.
That's about it. Unless you get damaged, that's the only time it changes. Whereas here, it's very much going to be a case of drivers having to be aware of what their tyre wear is like and how they're managing that while still maintaining pace and knowing what sort of delta they need to undercut someone, or how safe they have to be to sort of not get undercut or maybe push that overcut if they've looked after their tyres really well. So they're going to have to be smart with that. But they're going to have to do it on the fly.
And they're also gonna have to be careful for the spins, as Portimao, as I said before, is a roller coaster of a track going up and down.
As well.
Yes.
It's terrible. Although I dare anybody to drive a couple of laps in WinCam because I guarantee you'll feel sick.
Looks like no one is
So
going
undulating.
out on track, so this is probably going to be our final places. So we have Jacob in the Ferrari putting a pretty decent lap time, 118.0 on softs, so he's going to be our pole sitter for the race. Martin Vallo rounds out the final front row with a 118.1, so pretty good showing for him. George Norton, who puts a pretty good performance, a 118.2, goes P3. George in the Mercedes, 118.6, Tuka 118.7 with mediums, Ryan also on mediums, Greg as well. They are going to be P5, 6 and 7 respectively. Greg, Jacob's teammate, will start P7. David Power, I think he was our race winner in France,
Yeah.
is going to start P8 with softs. So that is going to be very interesting to see how he will make up places. We have Michael in the Alpine going P9, and Rafael rounds up the final points pain position with P10. Then we have Daryl, Paolo, Duhast, Rob and Dragos rounding up the final place on the grid, as he was not able to set a good lap time as the track was going to
David Hoyer, David Power's teammate, also qual. The game didn't let him set a lap, so he'll be in 16th.
Oh, that is
but
very
he hasn't
unfortunate.
had any practice, but he will have lots of brand new sets of tyres if we do get the expected chaos. But although F5 actually didn't have any safety cars, this is the first time they've managed that this year, despite having a 4-car incident in turn 1. So,
so
why not have safety cars?
probably, I guess we'll have to see. And let's see if it will be rainy for the race. I guess not, as we have 3 medium runners. And it's very sunny, so that is
typical
really good.
Portuguese Algarve weather. Sat on a deck chair on a balcony somewhere, drinking some port. Hopefully, it doesn't look like our drivers have been drinking too much port today and losing the car all over.
Oh, David Hoy has been put in a Red Bull, so that is very interesting. I guess all the points are going to go to Red Bull.
That sounds like something that would be done automatically, but yeah, the points will be attributed to Alfa Romeo.
As we are waiting for the session to start, we have a formation lap turned on, so everyone has a chance to heat up their tires before they start the Grand Prix. The race is 50%, so we are going to have 33 laps of the Grand Prix, so we are definitely going to have a lot of action happening and a lot of overtakes, hopefully. And everyone is starting their formation lap right now.
Yeah, the recommendation from the game, as it's just popped up for me, the recommendation from the game is if you start on softs to do a 2-stop with 2 sets of mediums. But that's completely unnecessary.
It is.
You don't lose as much for doing an extra stop here as you do at some places like Silverstone and France, where you have a very slow, very long pit lane. But you do still lose a fair amount of time, like any pit stop.
I think a 1-stop is manageable and definitely possible.
Ryan ran into the back of Tuka, so they're both going to be sat now on the grid with freezing cold tyres.
Ooh, that...
Two of the protagonists in the championship fight. So that might give Greg a pretty big advantage, although he appears to be on soft tyres.
That is interesting. How was he able to switch on softs when he qualified on
Unless he
mediums?
did his lap on softs and then put mediums on in the pits and decided that he couldn't beat his lap time.
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, that's weird. Anyway, that's weird. But,
Yes.
So, the top 10 are all on softs, apart from Tuka and Ryan, who are going to be on yellow walled blocks of ice. Now they're sat on the grid for the formation lap. Daryl in 11th has chosen the mediums, as have Robbie, Dragos, and David Hoy in 14th, 15th, and 16th. But Paolo and Duhast in 11th and in 12th and 13th have actually decided to start on the softs. They feel like that's going to give them an advantage off the line in the first few laps, and the sort of going long strategy on the mediums isn't going to be as beneficial to them as that. But we'll have to wait and see, because nobody knows, because we haven't raced it before.
And everyone is rounding up the grid. We are just waiting for a few people around the back. Like we said, Tuka and Ryan have been disqualified from the formation lap, so they're going to have really cold tires, so let's hope that they can stay off of any collisions with everyone else, as we should be starting in a few moments. And there we go, we are starting. We have 3, 4 and 5 red lights, and it's a pretty long hold up again, and we are underway for the Portuguese Grand Prix. We have a really good start from George, who is going to get P2 if he can overtake George as they collide. And Martin Valo is going to try and take the spot around the inside. George Norton gets P2, and George and Polis gets P3.
Mine's had a terrible start. He got sideways through Lagos, and he's dropped all the way down to 6th from 2nd on the grid. He's now behind Tuka. Tuka's all the way up to 4th on his ice-cold mediums.
And Greg
Ryan
has
Chapman
really
on
improved.
his ice-cold tyres has dropped down to 10th.
And
Tuka's made an excellent start.
And the one person that has really improved is Greg in the other Ferrari, who is P3 and is chasing down George Norton at the moment in the other Aston Martin. As we do have some overtakes
What he needs
behind.
to do, he needs to get in front of Tuka. Well, stay in front of Tuka and Ryan now, and really, Ryan already gets a 3-second penalty for corner cutting. So Greg really needs to push on here and hopefully clear George. Jacob might let him past if he catches up to him. and try and build as big of a gap as possible and maximise his points all today.
And right now Ryan is trying to go to attack Michael into turn 1, but he is not using any of his ERS as he does have a penalty like Adam has suggested.
And
Duhas
by Duhas from behind.
Oh, and they collided a little bit,
Shoved
which
off track,
puts him
basically.
off track.
That's what happens in Primera if someone gets down your inside. One of you is leaving the circuit.
Oh, and the two Alpines are going side by side into the straight, and they're still side by side into the hairpin. Let's see who can make out the deep position as Duhas breaks a bit late. And they're still going side by side as Michael is not leaving any room and Duhas goes off track. So Michael keeps B9 for himself at the moment. And Duhas has a pretty bad line into the uphill right-hander. But he still remains B10.
Ryan can't afford to get held up here by two fighting Alpines in front of him. He's lost a lot of places off the start and Tuca's just driving away from him at this point, and so is Greg. Greg's within 0.6 of George in second place, so he'll be hoping to make a move there, and Tuca's within 0.3 of George in fourth. So we might see moves from both those two, while Ryan's here stuck behind the Alpines.
Oh, and Duhas has made a very good overtake around the outside of the penultimate corner. Very, very impressive. And Michael looks like he's going to attack.
Here down the main straight as they come to Primera, but the Alpines are going to go side by side again. As Darrell has already stopped and put the hards on, so I think he's going to be trying to get to the end there. And he's a long way off the back of the field, but that is going to mean that he's not going to get held up by fighting. So he can just push at his own pace for the next 31 laps.
And David Power trying to get ahead of George in P6 using all of his ERS, but that straight is very short, so we're not gonna see a lot of overtaking opportunities there. So David Power is going to have to be patient if he wants to make that move. As George just
now runs in P4, so he's just 1.3, 1.4 seconds behind Greg. Greg's not really able to close up that gap to George. He's either made a mistake somewhere or George has deployed more of his ERS in order to pull that gap out a bit further. Because he's struggling to stay within the 1 second within the DRS.
Probably.
Field's sort of nicely spread. The first person on the road that's going to have DRS is mine down in 5th. Because he's chasing after Tuco in his mediums.
We already
Tuco
have...
sets the fastest lap.
We already have one person that went into the pit lane, and it's Daryl. I completely missed that. He went on hard, so he wants to go until the end of the race.
Being 32 seconds off the back of the field, he must have had damage. That to me seems too long for a normal pit stop. It probably involved a front wing change in that. So he must have got damage on the first lap. He's decided to put the hards on and see how long he can stretch them. There could be a late race safety car, late race rain, something like that. That means that he's only going to do one stop the same as everyone else. As David Hoy makes a move up into 12th, past the Alpine of Michael. So after fighting with Duhas, Michael must have been forced wide or half spun because he's dropped a fair few places. Just promoted Ryan up into the points.
Oh, and both Haas and Red Bull have collided into each other, and Dragos has used the reset to track function, so that is definitely going to be a penalty.
Concept between a Red Bull and a Haas. I don't think we've seen that yet this year. I think that's the first time we've seen that.
And it would have been a Alpha and Haas, but David Hoy has been put in.
I think we've definitely seen that before.
Yes. As Paulo is trying to go and overtake Michael for P11. So still outside the points, and there is a big difference, a big gap by Michael and Ryan. As Paulo...
George is just putting a fast... Sorry to interrupt you. George is putting a fastest lap inside the 19s, and he's now just 0.3 behind Jacob at the front. David Hoy must have damage because he's pitting from 15th place, so he must have got damage from that collision with Dragos. George pressuring Jacob, but he's not close enough to make a move. Tuca behind now is caught up and is pressuring Greg, with Martin right behind him as well. So we're going to have a three-way fight between three of the championship leaders for 4th place. And David Power is going side by side with George behind them.
Oh,
David
and he
Power's trying to join in on this. Oh, slight contact on the entrance into Samsung. Both managed to keep pointing the same way.
Oh, and
But that's
Raphael
gonna
Troy.
open David up to Raphael.
That is very close indeed. But Raphael is still way too far behind to try and make a move, and that's not a place where you want to overtake. Dragos spins.
And has reset to track again.
So that's already 2 penalties for Dragos.
Entirely possible. I wasn't on board with him, but I saw his dot teleport, so it's definitely a reset. So the guys on the hards at the back, Daryl's 3 seconds ahead of David, so David's going to be hoping to push up, get ahead of Daryl, and maybe close up. Close up some of that gap to the rest of the field. But he's run wide out of Samsung, trying to catch the tail end of the car into the gravel, so that's going to slow him down for maybe half a lap while he cleans his tyres up. And we've got a spinner. Jacob spun from the lead.
Oh!
Stopped him all the way down into 10th. He's just in the point after spinning from the lead. So that promotes George into the lead. And the fight now between Greg, Tuka, and Martin is now for P2. Separated on the road by just a second. Tuka in the middle of that 3 with his medium tyres is going to be able to go a lot longer than these guys on the softs. And the softs are going to start to slow down soon. It's going to give Tuka a pace advantage as well.
And Jacob spins again in the right-hander
He's
uphill.
not protected his hot tyres there out of Samsung.
So, Tuka and Martin are trying to go and overtake Greg, who is P2 and has a penalty of some sort. Tuka will now have DRS on the main straight, which is very, very long indeed. So he will have a lot of space to play with for the overtake. But he has a problem behind him. Martin Valo is trying to overtake him, and Tuka is on the middle of the track
Really
trying to
good
defend
drive.
the inside line. And Martin Valo going side by side with Tuka, but Tuka goes around the outside and is still B3. But that means that that battle with Martin has declined him the opportunity to get closer to Greg. But he still has a lot of ERS to fight with, so if he's patient enough, or if he just stays behind Greg, who has a penalty, he can still get P2.
Well, I think Tuka's likely to jump Greg on the soft tyres later if he doesn't manage to do it before Greg pits. Martin's going to have to do it on track. Maybe he's going to go for that 1 lap undercut and hope to put in a belt-in lap on his brand new mediums and jump Greg like that. But we shouldn't be seeing pit stops for the soft runners until around about lap 13, 14 at the very earliest. Even on a quali set of tyres.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see, as Greg gets a pretty bad line off of the penultimate corner.
We're only on lap 7 of 33. And already 6 drivers have 3-second penalties.
That's actually a lot.
The track limits here are a bit harsh. Especially at turn 1. Tuka seems to have a run on Greg. Tuka's now within a 10th and he's trying to get down the outside into turn 1, and he does. Tuka up into P2 on his mediums.
And Aston Martin have 1-2 at the moment. And we do have a spin of George in the Mercedes.
It'll be interesting to see if Tuka catches up to George in the lead, if George lets him go. With the alternate strategies.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Tuka's managing to pull a little bit of a lead out, but he spent a lot more of his ERS than he normally does. Down around 50%. Normally at this point in a race he's on like 95.
We also have a battle behind. We also do have a battle behind with Raphael and Ryan. Ryan is on medium tires, but he does have a penalty.
Ryan's trying to recover from his poor start.
Yes.
He's trying to push up through the field and trying to get on terms with Tuka.
And he is in the DRS range, but Raphael is also with David Power. Or actually he is not. He has lost the DRS range, but the David Power gets a really bad exit.
He's just got it back on exit. Which I think is where the line is. Not sure.
Ryan Power gets a really big slipstream off of Raphael, and he might have an opportunity around turn 1, but he is not using any ERS, so he still wants to be patient.
Raphael managed to get the DRS back to defend that.
Oh, and
I think if Raphael hadn't got the DRS back. Oh!
And Tuka has...
Tuka's half spun and lost 2 places. So he's now down to 4th on those mediums. As Martin's having a go at Greg. in front. Mike's trying to get around the outside of Tara Vip.
Tuka has
Tuka's
left the
DC'd.
session. Martin and Greg are still side by side.
Oh, side by side into Samsung, this could end in tears. Oh, Martin gives Greg space. Are they going to go side by side over the hills through Craig Jones? Which is a weird name for a Portuguese corner. Into Portimao now.
Oh, and Martin tries to go around the inside,
So
but...
close to contact.
Jesus Christ.
Martin did well to keep hold of his front wing there.
And Tuka is losing a lot of places as he is not in the session, and AI is set to a very low level.
Yeah, like 41, I think. So it's a good 5-6 seconds off the pace for most of these drivers. Yeah, Tuka's now lost places to Raphael and Ryan as well.
Oh, Martin...
Oh, Martin pits, Martin pits!
That is pretty early, I think.
This is either hard or 2-stop.
Probably hard, as Tuka rejoins the session, but he is around 10 seconds behind Greg.
He's 6 right now.
Martin Vallo goes on
He's a second and a half
soft.
behind Ryan, who is where his race really is, both the mediums. Another set of soft, so it's definitely a 2-stop from mine.
We have
trying an
more...
audacious 2-stop like he tried in Austria.
A lot of people are actually trying to do a 2-stop with George, Michael, and Jacob. All
Very close on exit with Dragos into Primera. So he's unfortunately not jumped Dragos, so he's going to have to clear him quickly on his older mediums. But he's going to hope to do it here in this DRS zone down to Taravip. Yeah, he's spending some of his ERS, so he should be able to get back. Oh, that's quite a late move already by Dragos.
and he is not trying to go for the move.
Kind of stuck. Might spend some more ERS and try and get another move down the inside into Samsung. Because Georgios gets a 3-second time penalty in Mercedes.
He needs
so
to...
I wonder if we're going to see Greg dive in this lap to try and cover off the undercut.
Maybe. But I still
Or he
think
might try
a
and
one-stop
extend
is
out
better.
and do one stop less.
I still think a one-stop is better.
Staying out. Yeah, absolutely. I think a one-stop is basically better everywhere if you can do it. Just because with there being 50% races, there's half of as many laps to make up the delta for a whole pit stop. If a pit stop here is like, say, 20 seconds, you need to be lapping 0.6 a second faster every single lap to make up that delta.
And Martin Vallo now has a really good line off of the start-finish straight. He is using every ERS that he has and the ERS as well. And that was a really easy overtake for Martin Vallo for P8.
With the ERS. Dragos doesn't really have any ERS to defend with, so it's quite an easy move on brand new tyres with the DRS as well. So he's going to have to try and build this gap up now to Dragos to stop getting attacked back. And he's got 3 seconds to catch up to Robbie in front of him. As a 3-second time penalty for David Hoy.
Tuka and
last. Paolo pits as well. So we've had a few drives come in.
a lot of people doing a 2-stop, so that is actually very surprising for me. We do have a battle with Tuka and Duhast for provisional P5, but when everyone pits, that's probably going to be P7 as Martin Vallo will overtake everyone. Tuka is one of the only drivers that doesn't have a penalty, including Dragos, Jacob, Daryl, and Paolo.
George and Greg pit from first and second.
Oh, and Raphael's
as well.
in
behind them as well.
So
Mo's Ryan's in the lead on his mediums, despite his bad start.
George goes for
George
hards.
goes on hards, so he's definitely doing a one-stop. He's going to get these hards to the end.
Oh, and Tuka trying to go around the outside of Duhas, but Duhas is not leaving any space. Trying to go around the outside again. We'll have the inside line off of the left-hander uphill. He has to be careful to not lose control and spin, but he is still behind. He is using every ERS and trying to...
Tuka got a bad line through there, but with the DRS he still might be able to make a move here into Tori Vip.
He locks up a little bit, but
DRS
overtakes
tries to
him.
fight on the outside, but he's not going to be able to fight that. Tuka now P2, he's 5 seconds behind Ryan. They're on the same strategies. So George has gone on the hards, pitting from the lead. As we appear to have had another spin. George has gone on the hards, pitting from the lead. As has David Power in the Alfa Romeo, and Raphael in the Mercedes, who are currently running 8th and 9th. But there are 4 drivers in front of them that haven't stopped. So they're all on the hards, so they'll be looking to go to the end. Greg's put the mediums on, so we might be doing a soft medium, soft 2-stop, or we might think he can get the mediums all the way. where they'll be quicker than the hards at the start, but they'll be screaming by the end of the race.
The mid teams can definitely go.
Martin's going around the outside of George in Stagnes. That's a cracking move.
And we have 2 spins with George and Michael, who had a pretty beautiful ballet dance, and both of them spinning in sync. So that was very entertaining to watch, I'm gonna say it.
Dio has pits, he gets off his soft tyres and puts the hards on, so he'll be going to the end on those. So yeah, we seem to have some alternate strategies of 1s and 2 stops. Martin's now 13 seconds off the lead, but that is basically net, because he's going to have to make a pit stop, as are the 2 in front of him. So he's going to have to hope he can gain time, basically, through the entire race, because he's going to go on mediums after the set of softs is done. Whereas the 2 in front might be trying to extend these out for softs, in which case they're going to be very slow towards the end of the stint, or they might be picking fairly early for hards.
David Hoy overtakes Paolo for P14, so that was a pretty easy overtake. We do have a battle with Duhast and Jacob behind. Duhast is on hard tire, so he is at a disadvantage from Jacob. But Jacob, after his second pit stop, will lose a lot of time. So a 2 stop is definitely way worse than a 1 stop.
Yeah, I think like if you were running it on your own, like basically if you were running the race as a time trial, I don't think the time delta would be that much different. But there's so few good overtaking opportunities here, it's very easy to get caught up behind somebody on older tyres for a lap or a lap and a half, which can really harm your race. Because it's going to overheat your tyres and you're going to lose some of that raw speed that they give you when they're brand new. So, like, Martin got held up by that, and he's now 12.5 seconds behind the leaders, whereas if he hadn't have got held up, maybe he'd have been 10 seconds behind, which would have been a much more achievable aim with 19 laps to go. Be half a second a lap and you'd be right on them.
And Paolo right now has DRS and is trying to go ahead of David Hoy, who has overtaken him last lap, and goes around the inside in turn 1, but Paolo gets a really bad exit, and David Hoy had to brake to avoid getting contact, but they do collide at the next corner, as David Hoy nearly spins but manages to catch it. So very impressive.
It's
from the
going to
Alfa
mean that
Romeo.
the DRS down here into Torre Vip is just going to close him back up again. It's not going to give him an opportunity to pass. Robbie's DC'd, so he's dropping back through the field a little bit. He's lost a position to Raphael already, and he's got Dragos coming in behind him.
So, we are almost at the halfway point of the Grand Prix, and as things stand, the fastest lap of the race has been set by Martin Vallo, a 118.8, so near the qualifying pace that everyone had when it was raining a little bit, and that is very impressive indeed. We have a lot of penalties, everyone almost 3 seconds, but we do have some people having 6 seconds, including Greg and Duhast, and David Hoy as well, and George is the only one that has 9 seconds. The most positions gained are by Dragos Vlaicu, who is in the Haas and has improved 7 positions from his starting place in P15. So that is pretty good. He will get 4 points if he manages to finish in that position. So not bad, but not great.
Yet, though, so
oh, and David Hoy has won.
David didn't get the same practice as everyone else because he missed qualifying, and that's a Red Bull front wing currently sat right next to the DRS line, no longer attached to his car. So he's going to have to stop again, David. But you could get the mediums definitely to the end, possibly even the softs. But he'd have to be a bit conservative.
We have Greg and Norton fighting in front. Greg is 7/10 off of Norton, but he is not using any of his DRS, so he knows that he will be in the DRS range as he has the tire advantage off of George. So if he can just stay clean and push only a little bit, not too much to not spin, he will be in the DRS range for the whole lap. And Martin Vallo ahead of them has to pit again, so that's a free position. So George Norton has P3 respectively after Martin goes into the pit lane.
Martin's not really gaining time on the front two anymore. That sort of gap he was closing in has sort of stagnated at sort of 12 seconds. So I don't think this two-stop's going to work out for him, unless there's a safety car.
But we did see a lot of spins, as we have one right now, and
We need to
no
stop
safety
being
car
psychic.
yet.
There's George coming out of Primera, which is an easy place to spin. If you try and cut it slightly too fine, you will hit that sausage curve on the inside, and it will just spin you out.
Greg is using all of his ERAs that he has, and George Norton has none of it. So Greg is trying to get closer to George as he is gaining with the slipstream, but he is still not close enough to try and make a move. And George Norton extending the track a little bit, so that is going to be one
If he can get a good
winning.
exit here through Lagos, though, he could have a good shot into Torrey Bay through the second DRS zone. It's only a short straight, but he's not spending any ERS down here, so he's not really looking to make a move.
Oh, but he does have
George went
space. He does have space, and they are still side by side into Panera, or I think whatever it's called, Samsung. And Greg
this
is
one's
into
Samsung.
P4.
6 and 7 don't have names.
Samsung.
They haven't got to that bit yet. So yeah, and then we come through Craig Jones, again, weird name for a Portuguese corner. And then into the double right-hander of Port Mayo. They weren't inventive and decided, let's just name it after the track. And go for a drink.
Zeke, you need to check Discord. The boss is calling.
Oh, well, tell him I'm busy.
I think he heard it. So, George Norton has DRS for this next straight. He is using ERS, so he doesn't want to lose a lot of time. He is not gaining with slipstream. He doesn't want it, it looks like. But he is still in the DRS range, as he gets a better exit off of Greg, but is still far behind. And Rob is still disconnected, so let's hope that he can join back. We have Dragos into the pit lane with hard tires. That is actually very interesting. I don't know if he started on mediums, but he could have gotten on mediums and go to the end of the race.
I believe he did start on the medium tires. From what I understand of Portimao, you can sort of push the mediums to around about lap 20. Then you can get on the softs and get to the end. That's why medium soft works pretty well around here. So we'll see if that's what Ryan and Super are trying to do. But everybody else pretty much is on the hards, apart from the guys that are team stopping. And a 3-second time penalty for Martin.
George Norton and Greg are fighting once again. George Norton, I think, has not got DRS, so he is off the DRS range. So he will have to rely on Greg making a mistake. Let's hope that he doesn't do that and that he can keep it clean. But let's hope that George can overtake him, so I don't really know what to hope for. But we are having a pretty okay race. We have a lot of spins, which is very expected in Portimao, as it's a very new track, not a lot of experience everyone has, and yeah, that's to be expected.
Yeah, it's a tricky track in terms of traction, so the amount of spins we've seen isn't unusual. Keep it clean and don't get any penalties and don't spin, you should be able to get a pretty good finishing position, even if your pace isn't the best.
And Jacob is getting closer to Rafael in the Mercedes a lot every lap, so we might see Jacob attacking him in just like next lap maybe, with DRS enabled, as he is still way far behind to get DRS. As Martin Vallo goes into the pit lane, so let's see what RC puts on. He puts on the mediums, So he wants to go until the end of the race with those, which will be very easy if he doesn't spin or collide or retire from the race.
I mean, a 2-stop is a sort of sketchy strategy. A 3-stop definitely isn't working.
Yes, of course. I think a 2-stop is just losing you a lot of time, so it's not. I don't think it's recommended strategy. It's a very bad strategy, and Jacob actually is in the DRS range of Raphael, so it's way sooner than I thought it would be. Jacob has soft tires, so he is at the advantage, and Raphael has more
He's
DRS.
going to have to make another pit stop.
Yes. But let's enjoy the battle at the moment before that happens. As Raphael goes pretty wide, gets a pretty bad exit off of the 90-degree right-hander. And Jacob will have DRS for this start-finish straight. Raphael is at the advantage of having more ERS, so he might have something to defend with. So let's see if Jacob can make the move. He is 5/10 off of Raphael, so he will have to fight for that position. We might even see them going side by side, as Raphael is defending the inside line and Jacob going round the outside, and they collide a little bit, and I think that Raphael has damage with that collision, as Jacob is very lucky to not spin from that.
His front wing all seems intact. Doesn't seem to be any shark bites out of it or anything, so he might get away with it. He might be okay.
I guess
he is looking to go to the end on these tires, so
he is locking up a little bit in every corner, so he might have damage, but we cannot be sure, as we have Paulo and George in the pit lane. Paulo goes to mediums until the end of the race, and we have our leader going into the pit lane, and Tuka is extending even more. So that is very interesting. Ryan going for softs, so he has a job with this undercut to.
Tuka's going to hope that with one lap softer tyres, he's going to be able to push this, and maybe hope that Ryan gets held up behind Greg. Greg's going to move past him down the pit straight into second place, and so is George. Actually, George is going to get through as well in the Aston Martin.
So Ryan now has a pretty big job to do to overtake George and Ryan, and we might see some defending maneuvers like we did in Austria with Lasse and Ryan.
Jacob pits in the second Ferrari, so he'll be going on the mediums and going to the end on those. That does drop him down to 9th place. There's quite a big gap between him and... oh wait, no, hang on. Daryl's coming down the pit straight. He might actually jump him here into Primera. Yeah, he's gonna get through, and Dragos as well probably. No, Dragos doesn't quite get there, but he's just 2/10 behind Jacob, so he's going to be looking for a run into Torrevieja.
So Jacob is in the final points paying position if Dragos can make the move, and he is trying to go around the outside. Oh, and he breaks very late. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but Dragos and Jacob are going side by side into Samsung. But Dragos is at a disadvantage with the tires, so Jacob has a better position to overtake. And as you've said, Adam, Tuka has went into the pit lane for softs. George Norton.
Softs, that promotes Greg to the lead.
And George
in
as
front.
well.
Is he going to jump Ryan? No, not quite. So he's going to have to catch it. And David Power gets through as well. So Tuka's lost an extra position to David Power. Though David's going to be on old hards, so it shouldn't be too difficult for him to make that move. But David's showing that he can do well with his tyres once again.
Oh, and David Power has left the session.
Yeah, he's DC'd.
So that is definitely going to be an easy overtake.
Apparently you can't rejoin. Oh, I don't have him.
I think I have David. David Power, yes, I do. So this is very interesting.
In Steam chat, which is very in stream chat, which is very helpful. So we have 2 screens, 4 eyes.
Rob wants an invitation as well.
Yeah, I've given Rob one.
Okay, I as well have. So that is very interesting how a lot of people are leaving the session. Is that the desync issues or something else?
I don't think it's desync. I mean, I had a race on Wednesday that had no desyncs and no DCs and things like that. So I think it's
Same
just
here.
it's possibly because we've got a different host this week. Maybe it's just something to do with that, but I'm not sure.
I don't know as well. Martin Vallo and Rafael are fighting for P6. Martin Vallo has mediums, 8-lap fresher tires, and he almost lost control of his car, but he managed to keep it, and that was a pretty easy overtake even before turn 1. So he gets P6, and if he stays in that position, he will get 8 points, which is not bad. That's pretty okay.
Well, but he's going to be looking for more. He's got 3 seconds now to catch up to David Power, who I'm not sure if he's rejoined yet or if he's still DC'd.
Jacob overtakes Daryl in the McLaren. Very easy overtake around the outside. P9, 2 points. We do have a spin with Dragos.
Daryl put those tyres on very early. They're very worn out now.
Dragos has used
spins in turn 1 again.
Dragos spun and used the reset to track function again. I caught that on camera.
Penalty points coming here. Let's see it coming. So Greg leads on his 11-lap old medium, so he's going to be trying to push those to the end, but they'll be very worn by the end. A 1.4 second gap to George, his 11-lap old hard, so they should make it pretty easily. And Ryan just 1.2 seconds back now on pretty new softs, pushing hard and hoping to close up on these front two. He needs to make 2 passes on track in order to win the race, but he has shown that he's quick and that he can overtake. Tuka's 4 seconds behind Ryan. He's managed to get past David because of his unfortunate disconnection. So he's going to be trying to catch up this 4 seconds to Ryan and overtake the 2 in front of Ryan to win another race. And then there's a 10-second gap back to Martin on his 2-stop strategy.
Oh, and Ryan and Tuka, I mean, Ryan and George.
Ryan gets on the outside of George on the way into Samsung. That's a good move.
I'm very sorry for interrupting.
Gets a bit squirrely on exit, so he's not really going to be able to fight this back either. Ryan can now take off after Greg.
Yes. As things stand, Tuka might actually win the race. He has the advantage of not having any penalties, so he will definitely get at least P2 in the race. So if Ryan can get another penalty, Tuka is about to win. But let's hope that he cannot spin. And maybe we can see that happen.
He only has 3 seconds, and he's less than 3 seconds behind. But it'll be interesting to see if Tuka, well, when Tuka catches up to George, if George lets him go. Just 2.5 seconds, the difference between them now. George on his old hard tyres and Tuka on brand new softs.
And he put the fastest lap time.
I don't think he'll really need to let him go, but if he can, it might help him sort of secure that race win. Because he needs to stay within 3 seconds of Ryan.
And the drivers that have disconnected have been fighting, Rob and George. Rob made a pretty good overtake around the inside of George. I don't know if I should say that because both of them are not in the session, but that was a pretty interesting maneuver. As Rob spins...
No, I think... Oh, well held. Well held, that man. Or computer, whichever. I think Rob is joined back, so well held, that man.
But where's he goes
the
then?
To Samsung. We need some Tokyo Drift music that's unfortunately copyrighted.
Yes. I mean, we can make it like with a piano and maybe it's not going to
get
be.
a xylophone.
Yes.
So Ryan's now right on the back of Greg. It's just a 3/10 gap, and Ryan's going to have DRS here. So he's burning some ERS and trying and get the move done down into Primera. Greg doesn't really have anything to defend with. I think he's just going to let Ryan go to not lose time.
And Tuka is nearly in the 3-second gap, so he might win.
Tuka's firing in purple laps. Yeah, he's about 3.5 behind Ryan, but he's coming up on George now, so we might get DRS down this straight, or I think he's maybe just missed it. I think he was 1,000th outside getting the DRS down into Torrevieja. But George is probably going to let him go as soon as Tuka pulls up on the back of him.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. We have 6 laps remaining, so that time has went by very quickly indeed. Ryan Chapman currently leads the race as he overtook Greg just the lap before. George, Norton and Tuka are fighting for P3, but George will probably let Tuka through. But he wants to give him DRS, it looks like, so he is staying in front at the moment.
That might cost him more time than the DRS is going to give him, if I'm being totally honest with you.
I don't
But
know.
maybe George is doing it so as to not lose time to Martin behind him.
That could be as well. But one thing is for certain, Tuka has a very easy overtake on his teammate, as his teammate is actually defending the inside line. So very interesting.
I mean, he's basically giving Tuka the racing line as well, because
Or
Tuka's
that,
always going to make
yes,
that
yes.
position.
That could also be
So
it.
I think it's a bit 50-50. He was sort of defending, but he knew Tuka was going to take that place.
And
So
Tuka
Tuka is now exactly 3 seconds behind Ryan.
and putting a purple first sector, so that is very, very good.
Gap to the leader is 3.0 seconds. So if the race finished now, Ryan would win by 0.04 of a second from Tuka.
But Tuka has DRS from Greg, so maybe that wouldn't be the case, as David Power has spun in the second corner.
He was on for a good result. It's just his hard tyres, he's starting to lose grip in them. Daryl's managed 25 laps on his set of hards so far.
That is
He's
very
going to be able to
good.
manage this last 5 or 6 and get all the way to the end from a lap 3 pit stop because of damage. That's pretty impressive.
And Tuka is
Yeah,
now
Tuka
in
now
the
is
DRS
on
range.
Greg.
Yes.
Although they've both got about 30% ERS, so Greg might be able to defend this decently well if he really wants to.
But
He's not using
there
any
is
of
no
it.
way.
He's letting Tuka go. He knows he can't really fight him long term. David gets a 10-second time penalty for corner cutting.
Jesus.
So he's
Oh,
lost
and
it. Yeah,
and
he's
he
lost
collided.
It, gone. Yeah, he's gone sightseeing.
I think he collided with David Hoy. I mean,
it was David that got the time penalty.
I mean, Michael.
Okay.
As both of them
he went
spun.
sightseeing.
I think that he
Yeah,
called
it was
cut and
19 seconds of penalties.
that's a lot. Jesus. And
And the gap at the
Tuka,
front is now down to 2.2, so Tuka is gaining on Ryan.
all he has to do
doesn't
is
need
keep
to-
it
He doesn't
consistent.
need to overtake him. Remember, Ryan does have that 3-second penalty. Tuka just needs to make sure he keeps it clean. But it's all about pride for these drivers, so he will want to win on track.
And George will
He
get.
runs wide
That was very
out
close.
of Portimao. So that's probably going to be a warning. I wonder how many Tukas on.
You can check if you want.
Yeah.
And if things stand like this, Tuka's teammate George will also get the final podium place. So this will be a double podium for Aston Martin.
I think that was Tuka's first warning.
Are you serious?
Well, it just says on the race director for the lap times, it just says warning. Yeah. And he only got one on that lap, so yeah, that was his first one.
Greg went into the pit lane, so he is trying to steal the fastest lap off of Tuka and get that additional point. But that is not recommended as he lost the place for Martin. And
And, I mean, he's got quite a lot of penalties as well, so even if he manages to get back past Martin, he's not going to build a 9-second gap.
oh, and he
He's
has to
just lost a
overtake
place to
Raphael.
Raphael, but he should be able to overtake Raphael fairly easily. Raphael has 17 lap old hards. But he's still going to build that gap for his penalties. He's got, I think, 9 seconds.
Yeah, 9.
Yeah, so he's going to build a 3-second gap over Raphael, and then he's got 9.5 seconds to catch up to Martin, who also has 9 seconds of penalties, so that will be a fight on the road. But he's not going to be able to catch that in 4 laps, even on brand new softs. They're quick, they're not that quick.
Greg is trying to go on Raphael, but this is not the place where you want to overtake. So he has to be way more patient, probably for the start-finish straight. And if he overtakes Raphael, he will be 10 seconds behind Martin, so there is no way that in 3 laps he can overtake.
He's not going to catch that. But as long as he builds a 3-second gap to Raphael, it's only cost the pitting for the fastest lap. It's only costing him 1 point. 1 position. So maybe he was starting to feel the wear on his mediums. as well, so didn't want to sort of try and drag them out that little bit extra. Maybe he was getting into puncture territory and it wasn't worth the risk.
Maybe.
Nearly contact down the main straight between Greg and Raphael, but Greg does make the move, and that's going to give him DRS to start this lap as well, which is going to be his fastest lap attempt.
We have a spin.
From Ero. I think it's Michael.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's Michael.
We also had David Hoy in the pit lane, so that is interesting indeed. He is also trying to go for the fastest lap.
Oh, that'll just piss on everyone's bonfire.
So Tuka is trying to stay in the 3-second gap off of Ryan, and he is doing a very good job of it. So if things stand like this in 2 laps, yes, if things stand like this, he will win the race. So let's hope that he cannot spin in the last 2 laps.
Also, Tuka only has 1 warning for corner cutting. Ryan only has 1 warning for corner cutting since lap 2, but he got a penalty on lap 1. So
what?
It's lap 1 that's really hurting you.
Yes. Maybe he can delete the penalty if it was something major. So
Possibly being bugged, it's possibly being due to contact. But he would have to get 2 warnings removed because he's got a total of 4. So if he gets 1 removed, well, Greg does a 17.9. That's quicker than pole.
that's really quick. But Portimao, with my experience, is very known for giving you 3 penalties for 3 warnings for 1 track extend.
Yeah, it can do at certain places. It's predominantly at Galp at final corner where it does that. As Tuka's got to go another warning out of that. Who gets spicy for the last lap.
I think that
Tuka got another warning. He ran wide again out of the exit of Portimao again. So he now has 2 warnings.
He only has to stay in between 3 seconds for 1 more lap. If he gets a penalty right now, it will all be over. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
I think that's what Ryan's got to pray for, because I don't think he's going to gain out 9/10, because neither of them have VRS, so he doesn't have a battery advantage.
But Ryan will have the arrest from the back marker of Paolo, or not.
Paolo gets out of the way before the line, so
Oh.
no he won't.
But Tuka might have.
I think Tuka just got in before the line.
Yes.
I think.
We have
Yeah,
our
Tuka doesn't
first.
have VRS either.
We have our first and only retirement of David Hoy, and that is actually very interesting that we only have 1 retirement. Very, very good.
There's a lot of runoff around here. There's a lot of space. It's rare that you're going to lose it and hit a wall. Losing it happens quite often, but then hitting a wall afterwards. Tuka's getting very close to track limits in some of these corners.
Let's keep on board with our leader, who is going into sector 3, the final few corners. And if he doesn't mess up at these last 2 corners, he is gaining a lot of time to Tuka. So maybe he will
Tuka's
remain.
backed it off. He's lost 4/10 in the first 2 sectors to make sure he doesn't get that penalty.
Oh, and it's almost 3 seconds, so this will be very, very close indeed as Ryan goes off the line, who wins on track. But Tuka, I think, gets a penalty on the final corner.
There's no way you got a penalty on that final corner. He was nowhere near the lines.
And George
That's
Norton
confusing.
finishes P3, and that's a double podium for the Aston Martin team. Martin Vallo in the Alpha Tauri goes P4, so pretty good performance for him. Greg is following him in P5, so that's 10 points and a fastest lap, so 11 points for him. Duhast, who is going and fighting.
P6.
Duhast is fighting with Jacob for P7.
Jacob's gonna jump Duhast here on penalties.
And he does.
And David Power might jump Duhast as well. He does. So David Power manages to get P8. Duhast drops down to P9 because he had 15 seconds of penalties at the end of the race.
And
I'm confused about that between Ryan and Tuka as Daryl takes the final points for playing position. McLaren bookending the points.
That is very interesting.
My maths is either terrible or that doesn't make sense. And I have qualifications in maths, so I'm going to go with that doesn't make sense.
And Ryan Chapman is the Games' driver of the day, our winner in today's race. I think, okay, It's okay. So we have Ryan here going and celebrating his win, lifting that very interesting trophy. I've never actually seen that one. It's very interesting, and you can see that Ryan is very happy about that win. The Britain.
Just a big cup. Do you think they made that trophy thinking Kimi Räikkönen was going to win? Or do you want to fill it with booze?
Maybe. At least he would have that drink of his. But Ryan Chapman is our winner, and Tuka actually didn't get a penalty, so it's very weird how he didn't win.
That was just... I wonder if it was bugged then. I wonder if the timing thing was bugged.
Maybe he lost control of his car at the final corner.
I don't think so. I mean, I watched it across the line. It was fine. That makes no sense.
Maybe desync. So, anyways, Ryan,
Possibly,
Tuka, and George round off the podium position. So, a double podium for Aston Martin. They are going to be very happy about that, and they might be leading the championship in the constructors. We shall see next time when we do the graphic. Martin Valo follows them in P4, gets 12 points for himself. Pretty good performance. But Greg, a 117.9. 11 points for him, that's very impressive indeed. Rafael in the Mercedes, Jacob, David Power, Duhast, and Daryl rounds up the final points paying position. Then we have Dragos, Paulo, George, Rob, Michael, and David Hoy, who have been lapped more than once, or actually only Michael and David Hoy have been lapped more than once. So, a pretty interesting race, not how I thought it would go. The two stoppers.
I expected a lot more in terms of safety cars.
Same here, but it's reasonable why they didn't come as well. But yeah, that is round 9 in Portugal, done and dusted. Next time we are going to go to Italy in Monza, I think, if I remember correctly.
So next week is Monza. The Temple of Speed. So that should be pretty good. Turn 1 is going to be chaos.
And the
As
chicanes.
everyone tries to go from 200 miles an hour to 60. And that is also where other tiers of PC1 and F1 will do their sprint race qualifying.
That is going to be very interesting indeed to see how it will turn out. But anyways, I hope that you have enjoyed the race and the stream. Hopefully there weren't any connection issues or bugs on the stream, and I hope that you have enjoyed the race. And we will see you next Saturday in Monza. And have a good night or have a good day, and stay safe, everyone.